And then I'm going to pass the mic to all of these guys up here, and hopefully what will happen is get a conversation going on a particular topic. I talked to Heather about this a while ago. She mentioned, I'm just curious where this has gone. You mentioned to me a while back that there were mobile grocery stores were coming in Vancouver, there are permits being issued for them. I haven't seen anything yet. Is that still in the works? If it's in the works, when will we see it?
Happy to answer that. That was part of the original motion that I put forward in 2008 based on the New York program of green carts. And the idea was to bring fresh produce and healthy food in an uncooked way to neighborhoods that are food deserts. We have not been able to find a partner with us for that. It's a subsidized program. We got very close this year, but it didn't come to fruition. So that is a program we're still very keen on, we still want to do. But again, it is a subsidized program. We'd have to be partnering up with several other organizations, perhaps culinary schools, Vancouver Coastal Health, etc. So hopefully in the future, but not yet.
My name is Jenny Burgess, and I've been selling at the Vancouver Farmers Markets for 9 years. My mother was selling first as Carol's Country Kitchen, and now I sell there as Geek Sweets. And what I'm curious is, what were your first steps at starting out, specifically for the people who have food trucks? I know everyone's first steps are different depending where you are financially, so you can't necessarily tell me what mine will be, but I'm curious what all your first steps were. Was it, getting the truck, finding a business partner, writing your business plan? What do you think is the most important steps, and how did you do them?
It's a good question, and we get it a lot, actually. As I mentioned in our talk here, that a lot of people come to the truck, they flock to the truck for insights. But it's a tough question, because as you said, where do you start? The first thing is, I think, talking to people who have trucks or carts to see what the reality is. You get two types of vendors. You get those who, it's like two dogs. Do you ever go to the seawall and see two dogs meet each other? And they're not happy really that the other one's there, but they sniff each other's butts, and then they let it go, and there's some posturing that goes on. Some vendors are like that.
That's what it's like at the bakers market. It's all bakers, and everyone around each other is just sniffing each other's butts, just surrounding each other.
Yeah. How's it going? Oh man, we're killing it. Every day we're just killing it. No, you're not. That's the reality. You're not killing it. So find a few vendors and get some insight from the vendors. Clement did a good job of saying, hey, and Stephen, we did 10 covers today. It sucks outside. Get some honest feedback, number one. And I think that's the first step, because candidly, I think what happens is when you get honest feedback, and when you're getting the posturing, and if that doesn't scare the shit out of you, and you want to go to the next step, then you're an entrepreneur and you're nuts like us.
And I'll just add one other thing. Definitely do the business plan, and then do out a financial side of the business plan, and then once you're finished and you think, yeah, that makes total sense, then half your revenues and double your expenses, and you probably have it right.
All right.
You know what? I gotta agree. I mean, the business plan is probably the most important part. People think they do a business plan just for a bank loan, or just for someone else to read it. The business plan is for yourself, really. I mean, you have to get on paper everything that you have in your mind, especially your pro formas, especially what you're thinking your financials are going to be, and then I mean, you definitely you have to know the numbers. I mean, it is a business. I mean, it's fun, and everyone has a passion for it, but you got to know the numbers. I mean, if this is going to be the sole income, then you got to know that. But I mean, I would start with the business plan. Flesh out your ideas, and then from your business plan, you'll figure out what the next step would be.
Well, they pretty much touched base on all, I guess, the money stage. I think the biggest thing for me is, the commitment level, right? The commitment level, like how many days do you actually put into your truck, right? Like everybody thinks, oh yeah, I open till 9, I get off at 3. Hell no. A 10-hour day is a short day. So, if you can commit to that and you love what you do, then that's a good stepping stone too. But I think commitment level is the biggest thing, because we work on the weekends too. We pick up catering on top of the 10 hours. So if you can't commit to that, then don't even bother, I would say.
So after the business plan, the money, and the commitment, I guess it's the food. You got to love what you do to the food. If you don't love what you are doing, then might as well do something else.
Thank you, great question.
Thanks very
So
much.
we've got a question right over here.
I'm just wondering if there is a regulation or a bylaw that restricts the hours of operation for a food truck, because I've noticed that most food trucks, 90% of them, they all shut by 3. And personally, I would like to get beef fries after I get off work at 5:30. So, like, and you guys are nowhere to be found. So, like, I was just wondering, like, if there is some sort of guideline, because other cities that I've been to, like, you know, they're open around the clock or whatever, what have you.
I'll give you the regulatory answer and then pass it off to the food cart guys for the practical answer that they're probably going to be able to offer. Ours are quite liberal, I think. I can't remember what it is citywide. It's midnight, I think, but it's 4 a.m. in the entertainment district. We allow food carts to be open all kinds of hours. It's up to them to decide. We don't. People think that we actually tell them when to be open. We don't. We allow them. What we do is lay the table for them to succeed and hopefully get out of the way. But we are not the business managers, and it's up to them to determine their own hours. We do set the outside parameters, and again, they're quite liberal.
We actually have 2 permits. So we have a permanent location, which is on Alberti and Butte, and then we got our mobile permit, which I guess allows us to move around to different locations during, I guess, time. So some of the locations, due to, I guess, traffic, we have to get off the street. Like during rush hour, say like 2:30, 3 usually, then we have to get off the street. And then a lot of the times, because of the meter permits, because we gotta hood them, it's almost not worth it to go back again. Because if we don't hood it, I gotta look for a new parking spot. That could take another hour. Maybe it could take 5 minutes. It could take an hour, 2 hours. But if I hood it, I have to pay for what I've hooded it for. So say
Cover the parking meter.
cover the parking meter. So yeah, you block the meter off. Like it'll say from like say 3 to 7. But if I don't do anything between 3 to 7, I'm just paying for an empty meter, right? So I guess that's the reason why we're trying it out, like especially for spring and summer. But during the winter, it was almost a lost cause. It's so much rain and the weather was so bad.
And that's the kind of situation where, and again, I was really speaking to the street vendors as opposed to the mobile vendors. That's the kind of situation where having a conversation, which we're constantly doing with the vendors, can help us to understand where some of the barriers the city's throwing up might be able to be tweaked.
If the pods go ahead in Vancouver now, and they're on private parking lots or whatever outside the downtown core, will that see these food truck operators be able to do dinner time service where they couldn't do it before?
If it's private property, it's up to the private property owner.
I think it should be mentioned that a lot of the sidewalk vendors, so the trailers, they can stay out long, obviously, because there are no restrictions. I mean, there's no bus lane coming through the sidewalk. So, I mean, we have, I think we're still the only ones that do it. We run till about 6 o'clock, so, and we do weekends. But I mean, there is definitely a lull after lunch. I mean, especially downtown. I mean, as soon as lunch is done, at 2 o'clock, it's a ghost town. And then people start slowly getting hungry again about 3 or 4 o'clock. But like I said, all the trucks are gone by then. They all have to go back. And we have, I mean, it's a little bit different with a food cart than a restaurant. I mean, you only have so much staff. So you have to go back there and then go prep. And you still got a couple hours of prep. So at that point, I mean, you want to call it a day. I mean, we're quite fortunate that we can stay on the street and cook our tandoori chicken on the street. And that kind of keeps us out a little longer. So we get a couple more hours out of the day. But I think a lot of people, especially the trucks, I mean, they're gone because firstly, because of the traffic, and then secondly, because there's no one around.
Hi, my name is Tracy Duick, and I own Tracy Cakes Bakery Cafe. We opened 6 years ago, and I thank you so much for the information I've learned tonight. Thank you for the genuine, real information, not the glossed over. It's so fun. Although I'm sure it's got to be fun. I still love my job, so I'm sure you love yours. What is the main contributing factor to food trucks' success, if there is one main? And like, would it be location or food offering?
I think both are really, really important. Location, location, location.
I think it's a perfect balance. Definitely location. Like I think when we opened, we were like at one corner, and then we got asked to move like 3-4 meters down due to construction, and we went from doing like 80 covers to like 5. and we're just like 3 menus down. It's really important about that, and being at that location like you promised. Like if I say, you know, I'm gonna be there at 11 till 3, Monday to Friday, unless I tweet that I have some kind of function or something, I better be there 11 to 3 because, you know, you're on wheels, right? Like people see it as a vehicle. So if you're not there when you promise you're gonna be there, people just continue walking and they just won't bother to stop next time, right? And price point is huge, right? I think one of the biggest issues we have right now is restaurants are complaining that we're taking some of their business, and it's obviously due to price point, but it's also quality too, right? We're spending and we're only charging you so much, you know, of our I guess our sweat and our hard work to what we think is like what we should be charging you. As of if you sit down for a dinner or a lunch, you're looking at $10 and over. But like all of us, you know, we charge for a reasonable price for a fair quality, and it's at the 10-point price range, right? And I think people like that.
That's a loaded question because I think we're still trying to find that answer. It is challenging. I think location is an important consideration. Price point. Oftentimes, when you go into a restaurant to spend $30 on a nice meal, we are using the same quality ingredients because people here in Vancouver like local, organic, sustainable, and so on. But you can't charge over $10 when you're a food truck. So we have different sort of pressures. But I think that the most important thing, I had mentioned quirkiness. I think the most successful trucks, and Audrey, you could probably attest to this, are the ones with personality and with heart. I mean, the trucks that are successful are the ones that ooze personality. And fundamentally, at the core of what we're trying to do with Roaming Dragon and with Vidge's Railway Express, the team makes fun of me because I've always viewed Vikram Vidge as the greatest host a restaurant has ever seen, right? For those who have gone into the restaurant, you walk in and he remembers you. And there's a lot of love, and it's genuine and it's sincere. And I use a term with our crews, both on Roaming Dragon and on the Vidge's truck, channel your inner Vikram. You really need to channel your inner Vikram because the food is good. It's really good, but there's a lot of really good food out there. And unless you win people over with creativity, with personality, with music, with energy, with excitement, that's, to me, you ask for one thing, that's the package. It's not just having great cakes. It's bringing the personality of a stay-at-home mom who took her heart to the street with a truck, and you know, here's mom's cupcakes. I think that type of spirit is what wins people over, as opposed to just like, cool, here's a cupcake or here's a cake from a truck. Big deal, right? That's from my experience, and Joy would probably say the same thing. That's an important element.
I have a question for headers. What's the common pitfall or misconception about opening food trucks?
Thanks for the question. I think some of these guys could answer it even better than I could, but I'll give it a shot. Again, I set the policies, our staff then implement the policies, and these guys go out and do the business. So I'm really at the policy level. But what I can say that seems to make a difference is, again, it's that heart behind it. It's that desire to win, but it's having a good business plan. And the people who are succeeding, the people who are lasting, we're realistic. And I think that the greatest misperception is that it's easy and fun, and that it's cheap. And we really didn't get into costs up here, but one of the common things that we hear about is that, oh, that's cheap. Those trucks are not cheap. Their commissaries are not cheap. Their monthly fees, if they're a mobile truck, are not cheap. Their staff are not cheap. Their food is not cheap. So I think there's this misconception that, well, I can't afford a restaurant, so I'll go out and do a cart, is one that people have to be very, very cautious of. And I think that the people who've come in, early adopters like you're seeing up here, who came in and succeeded, had a very level business plan in mind, and had the capacity to take some risk. We did see, not a huge failure rate, but we did see some fail in the first couple of years because there was this concept that just all I have to do is get a cart and cook some whatevers and we're good to go, and it just isn't. That's not realistic. These are very slim margins. I would love to see the trucks open till 8 o'clock every night, but they're not making money, so we can't insist upon that. I would love to see all the trucks downtown on the weekends so the tourists are looking for them, but they're doing catering jobs, or they were at the Waldorf. They're somewhere there's a guaranteed audience during those times. Our job is to set the policy get out of the way and hopefully try to get as much out of the way as possible. And, and then hopefully set the stage for business success, but we can't. We are not running the carts. We're just setting the ground so that people can do so. But the ones that we've seen succeed really came in with their eyes wide open. I think that's the biggest key.
In looking at food trucks and various like food trailers and food conversions, we've seen prices all over the map of like if you want to buy a truck, and most of them are down in the States, and I think just because it's so new, it hasn't normalized to anything that's like seems reasonable. So I was wondering what you guys, like, if you can give like a cost basis for kind of like what your truck was and what you did, if it was a conversion or on your own or whatever. And then also insurance was another interesting one that like I hadn't really thought of until recently. Like, is this insured as a regular truck?
I can talk about the trucks and the formats and all that. Joy can talk about kind of some of the costs as far as the insurance goes, just very, very high level. I think one of the first steps you look at if you get beyond that I'm crazy stage and decide to proceed, there's different value propositions for carts, trailers, and trucks, and I think each one of the business owners subscribes to one philosophy over another. The truck for us gives us tremendous versatility because it is essentially a restaurant on wheels. The trucks have a 16.5-foot kitchen, which is bigger than a lot of restaurant kitchens actually. So a lot of times people are pretty surprised. Tremendous versatility for street. Coastal Health loves it because there's refrigeration, deep fryer, steam tables, cold prep station, all kinds of stuff. So it gives us tremendous versatility as far as what we can do. Trailers, Sarb can probably talk to as far as the performance and cost, but trucks, a good used truck, whether it's coming from the States or here in Canada, Canadian prices are a lot higher. So trucks comfortably, 80 to 150K. There's a type of truck that we're starting to see in the marketplace where a lot of metal shops and people will say, well, get a Canada Post truck, put a bunch of stuff in it, and we're good to go. And a lot of used trucks that have been in the market for a long time. I've coined a term. I'm going to put it documented here. I call them polished turds. Polished turd is a truck that has a nice wrapper on it, but at the end of the day, when you peel it off, it's still a turd, right? So the Canadian marketplace is candidly getting flooded with trucks that were ice cream trucks that now have different types of equipment. You start seeing them on Craigslist and so on. So trucks range, I would say, comfortably 80 to 150K. Carts, probably 8 to 20K for a cart, and trailers we're seeing in the $40 to $70,000 range. On to insurance.
And also you have to be careful taking the U.S. trucks over to Canada, because that's not the easiest thing getting across the border either. It depends on a whole bunch of different things, who the manufacturer is in the States. And then once you bring it here, then you also have to look at stuff like the refrigeration units. Especially a lot of the old ones in the States were done with what's called a cold plate system, which basically charge up your cold plate, which is basically just a metal thing that freezes at the back of your fridge, and then it just runs the day through, and you hope that by the end of the day it's still cold type situations. So you have to, like if you spot check it in different areas, there are different temperatures versus a mechanical cooling system, which obviously Coastal Health looks a lot happier on. As far as insurance, generally a truck is running, it depends on how good a driver you are. It does. But you're looking at just over about $200. That's in your ballpark. Then you also have to look at liability insurance as well. And depending on what type of liability insurance, you're probably looking at another $200 to $500 a month.
So you're seeing the cost, right?
Oh, yeah.
Truck inspections,
permits,
repairs, permits,
parking,
all of a sudden restaurants.
licenses.
Seems like a great idea.
A brief funny anecdote on that. The very first year that we did the new carts, it was very slow to roll out, and we got quite a bit of criticism for that. And it turns out because there's one guy out in the valley who manufactures these trucks, and he probably does one a month, and he got 17 orders at once. So there you go.
What seems to be the best recipe for success? People that have had restaurants and have gone to open a food truck, or opened a food truck and then maybe gone into restaurants.
Again, I'm the policy person, but I can say that Chapadog was the first one to go bricks and mortar, I believe, and they were very, very well established with a really loyal audience before they made that move. And I think it's going well for them, but I haven't checked in. Vikram is the first, well, no, he's not the first at all. There's quite a few restaurants that have had their chefs open carts, and I think they've all been quite successful. I think some have changed their format since they first opened, looking for a better business model, but I really like it when that happens because it shows that diversity of audience that they're trying to reach out to, and having some of the top chefs, including Vikram, choose that way to reach a broader audience, I think is fantastic. But again, they're very well established people. They know they can cook good food. Excellent chefs that we have here who have made the move.
Because I wasn't in the food business at all before starting this. I do appreciate having a business background though whenever starting a business. I mean, it's important to understand. I mean, it probably sounds pretty lame, but I mean, it's important to understand the numbers. I was quite fortunate in the fact that I kind of got the business side, and then I got a really great chef that understood the cooking side. So I mean, running it as a business, I mean, that worked out pretty well for us. I mean, he gets. I mean, he picks up where I leave off. Really, I mean, that's kind of the way that we work, and I feel like it works pretty well for us. I mean, it doesn't hurt to know your numbers. I sound lame. I know it. I sound really, really lame, but it doesn't hurt to know your numbers at all.
I sound like an accountant. A lame accountant.
So I think there's value in developing a network, whether it's pulling in consultants. We worked initially with Don Latondra, Tina Finezza, Jimmy Stewart, and it is on the culinary side. But just finding a network of people who have experience. We've learned a lot from our time with Vikram, and I think he's learned a lot from us as well. That there are similarities, but a lot of differences as well when we're talking about restaurants and food trucks. So maybe a balance of both. If Jory and I can, go back in time, we'd probably do certain things different now that we know a little bit more about the industry, protecting margins and so on. But I think the spirit that drives all food carts and trucks, and the thread that connects us all together, is that passion and the heart. And I think that's, whether you have restaurant experience or not, you can learn it, right? I mean, you may not have 3 years sweating it out in the kitchen, working a line, but there's certain things and attributes. You can surround yourself with the right people, and that passion and the heart, it kind of opens your mind up to making things right. Plus the financial pressures. I mean, no better pressure cooker than to be in the shit right off the bat, right? To say, you've got liabilities, you've got staff, and you've got payroll, and you've got suppliers, and all kinds of things. And there's no better way to learn than to have that, that pressure. It sucks at times, but it's invaluable.
I can actually tell you that I know of a couple of trucks that are actually just about to open restaurants. Juice truck guys who've spoke here before, they are actually scouting locations right now to open a storefront. So they will have their juice truck on the street and also have a juice truck brick and mortar. Also, Chef Wolf, who owns Fresh Local Wild, is about to open a restaurant in Yaletown in about a month to 2 months. So you can see that, so he's actually is a chef who worked for Global Group. He saw the restaurant success. He opened his own food truck, and now he's about to open his own restaurant. So it's sort of, I guess he's trying to cover both angles, although he's a chef too, so he knows the whole chefing side of things. So
this is a question for Heather. You told us you were you're getting calls from New York, places like that. Have you been approached by your colleagues from other municipalities in Metro Vancouver?
Absolutely. Metro Vancouver and actually across the country, as well as some cities in the US, we're getting a lot of questions because we did do it a little bit differently by getting in our point system for sustainability, a point system for business plan, for your truck readiness, all those things, as well as bringing in some of our top local consultants in all those areas to help us assess their plans. So we've taken it to a level again that we got some criticism for at the beginning when we went from lottery to a quite heavily juried decision process. In other cities like Toronto, which had a program that didn't do well, and it's now they're trying to bring it back. It kind of crashed, and they're trying to bring it back. They're looking to us for why ours is succeeding and theirs didn't. So it's as much about process but it's also because we have such fantastic food, and that's partly because we are where we are. We're Pacific Rim. We're in a wonderful food producing place. We have amazing chefs here. We're such a multicultural city. But a lot of cities are looking to us for the process and how it is that we got such amazing food, because the carts that are out there and are succeeding, and most of them are, are producing food like you would get in a top-notch restaurant. So they're curious as to how we got there. We got there through learning from our chefs, learning from our vendors, learning from our accountants, and everybody else who understands the business. And then we had the luxury of amazing food and amazing chefs here. But the process is also why I think we're not seeing as many failures as you might have expected, because we're running them through the grinder before they get that permit.
Are you aware of any other municipalities following?
North Van is asking, Coquitlam has asked, Richmond is asking. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Everyone's very keen to Nanaimo. Yeah, they're very, very interested. And again, across the states, I get somebody in Indianapolis, I think it is, has been asking. Most of those going to staff, and they reply to them because that's the contact on the website is the staff. But there's definitely a lot of interest in this. And again, people want to know how we're so successful. They want to know how we're getting so much great PR and getting on TV and stuff with their food carts. And it's because we have great food carts, and we have those because partially because we've screened like mad for them and made sure that they were highly likely to be successful before we gave them the opportunity to be so.
I've got a question for Audrey. So your show is, you're seeing food trucks all over the United States, all over Canada. And I'm sure there's quite a process on how you pick these food trucks and which ones you pick to be on your show. But from all of the stuff that you've seen and James has seen and everybody who travels North America for your show, are there any food trucks doing cuisines or foods that you're seeing down there that we haven't seen up here? What do you think would be good to have in Vancouver that we don't already have?
Something about in the States everything is bigger. So some of the food you see is really extreme. One of them in our first season, I think there was the Redonkadonk burger, and it's like 3 patties plus bacon and cheese and egg, maybe some spam or a piece of pineapple on top. So the thing is that I wouldn't say anything goes, but certainly use your imagination and think outside the box. So yeah, it's maybe based on mom's recipes, but then take it to the next step, because. If it really strikes a chord, you'd asked about whether it's location or price or food. I think if your food is over and above, beyond, what we hear a lot in the States is people stock them. People travel to where the truck is to get that. Like people stand in line at Vidges to get that food. It's the ambiance, as you say, it's the personality. But they go for the unique. They just, it's got to be tasty, but sometimes it's got to be over the top. And I don't think we have that yet in Vancouver. We're Canadians, so everything's very polite. So that's something that we've seen in the States be quite successful. It's surprising. Sometimes you look at it and you go, are you kidding me? But people go nuts for that stuff down there.
That is actually a good point, because I like what you said about the inner Vidges, soul, or whatever. So I was just in Seattle a couple weeks last weekend, and Vikram's wife, Miru, just opened a restaurant in Seattle called Shanique. So it's named after her daughter, but some of the recipes are the same as what you find in Vidges, and a lot of the other ones are not. And they've only been open, 2 months? I was there the Saturday night, I couldn't believe it. It was a full house. They had a lineup out the door waiting for tables. I even had to wait an hour for a table, even though I knew these guys. And it was amazing, but it's the same thing. It's like what happens in Vancouver. They're using that same model in Seattle, and it's working for them. All these kinds of things you see, like even at the Richmond night market. That's where I saw you guys last summer, sort of in action, and these guys had quite a crowd going on there. But I saw you in August, I guess it was the end of the summer. But I think you need pizzazz. You need characters on these trucks to have some fun with everybody. So his kitty glasses seem to be quite popular, because when you guys were in my Tasting Plates event, it's what everyone was talking about the next day, are these kitty glasses. They're in photos everywhere, but that worked for you guys. I mean, just a little bit of fun goes a long way. So thank you again to all the speakers for tonight for speaking and answering all these questions, for everybody for coming out. And you can find it all at foodtalks.ca in about a week or 2.